Now, the African National Congress's Gauteng co-convenor, Panyaza Lesufi, says the party will have to return to basics and put an end to factional conflicts if it is to return to its former glory. Now, the ANC agreed on a plan to renew itself after a two-day meeting in Johannesburg, following its poor showing, of course, at last year's polls. Lesufi says he is confident that the party's plan will help win back voters in Gauteng. And he also joins me now for a little bit more on this conversation. Premier, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it, of course, as also co-convenor of the ANC in Gauteng. Do you mind sharing with us what it means to go back to basics then for the ANC?
Thank you so much, Alawi, and thank you for hosting us. It's just to deal with the basic things that our people have asked us to deal with. You will recall we concentrated more on broad issues. For example, building on racialism, Bill of Rights, gender parity, ensuring that we got the necessary legislation that can cover literally every sector of our society, from ICT, growing businesses. But our people have been impatient on just basic things: water, electricity, potholes, traffic lights, grass that is not cut, crime, and also the infiltration that we've seen of people that are not properly documented in our communities. So that's going back to basics, to attend to those issues. We had all our executive mayors of all our municipalities under the control of the African National Congress. We had all our officials, and we also had our budget team there. So we then resolved that it's very, very important that we really concentrate on the basic things that are on the eyes of our people. People see them daily, especially matters that affect them. As I said, we've got long list here. We call them G13. We've just added an additional one of sinkholes because people of Merafong and Tshwane and part of Soweto, they're going through difficulties of sinkholes. But those are the basics that we're talking about. But you can't implement them if you don't have a strong organization. So we also spend time just to replenish the organization. Fortunately, we have been reconfigured. Now we have a broader team, the provincial task team. Then we agreed on the do's and the don'ts. What are the things that we need to focus on, work on them, and ensure that we've got a viable organization? Because the issues that we want to implement or go back to basics, if the organization is not strong, it will be very difficult for us to manage them as well.
It feels as though, you know, if I was to look at, for example, the Maslow hierarchy of needs here, that you were perhaps floating above to the elements like self-esteem or self-actualization then as a party, and now you're looking right at the bottom at physiological needs, breathing, food, water, shelter, clothing, sleep, etc., as being the basic elements that you're talking about. Does that mean then that because of that, you now have a different, shall we say, goal or targets that you've set for yourselves in order to reclaim Gauteng?
Definitely. We've also established a monitoring and evaluation team so that we can be evaluated and we can put timelines on some of the commitment that we've made. And we can also monitor those that have been deployed in government, either as a premier or executive mayor or MEC, so that we've got one goal that we achieve, one plan that we've adopted, and we can have tangible measurements to determine whether we're making progress or not, which is something that has been taken for granted. Now that we know the consequences of taking those things for granted, we really believe that we need to up our games. We need to also have people that are properly skilled and talented to do the monitoring and also to hold all of us accountable. And that's the purpose of having this two-day Lekgotla with our alliance partners and everyone that attended that Lekgotla.
I'm going to put you on the spot here and ask whether it's a leadership flaw, though, however, because now you've created working groups or units that will deal with issues like potholes, lights, and mushrooming of informal settlements. Each of those have now got their own units. You've never needed that before in order to do the job.
Well, it's mistrust, to be quite frank, and also communication and packaging of our messaging. We didn't lose elections because we didn't do anything. We lost election on the basis of our packaging and our messaging. I can give you an example. Somebody who's unemployed will say, "We'll not vote for you because I'm unemployed." But the one that is employed will also say, "We'll not vote for you because either I don't have a house." And the one that has a house will say, "I'll not vote for you because there's no clinic in my community." The one that has a clinic in his community will say, "I'll not vote for you because there's no school." And the one that has a school will say, "I'll not vote for you because my child has not being accepted at the university. I can go on and on and on. So it's the packaging that we need to really gone are the days of having one message for everyone. We just need to be to target our message. I mean, the people that are staying in urban areas that we're in suburbs, we feel that the opportunities granted by our new democracy need to be elevated, and they've benefited out of that. But there will be no willing to vote for us purely because of mistrust and the messaging. So if we can just work on the messaging and closing the gap of mistrust, because there's a huge mistrust between our political party and society generally. And it's very, very important that we attend to those issues as quickly as possible.
How do we know this is not just posturing then, Premier? Because, you know, the local government elections are indeed coming very soon, next year that is, and perhaps the party might just now be in election mode and the vigor and the stances could be changing to try and ramp that up. The key question marks have always been in between those election cycles, actually doing the work.
We are fortunate as a country that we got election every 2 years. Last year, you know, we had a national and provincial election. Next year, we're having a local government election. So we'll always be in election mode, and that is why people will accuse us. That is electioneering. Every quarter, we've got by-elections where people vote. So we are always on a perpetual election mode. But you can't fold your arms and say, I'm not doing this or I'm not attending to this matter purely because I'll be accused of electioneering. Elections are the hallmark of democracy, and they're there every 2 years in our country. So we just have to work within that, and those that are skeptical on the basis of our commitment, we just need to persuade them to see that elections are there. They happen every 2 years in our country. So we're one of those countries that is always under the spotlight of accountability. We're always under the spotlight of election results and electoral support. So we just have to be serious and committed on the commitments that we've adopted.
Premier, what are the 13 priorities? I'm going to try and hold you accountable here, if I may, then, to just these 13 priorities that you've held.
Well, high on the agenda is water. We are of the view that we need to ensure that every community has water. We can't go back to Stone Age, where people have to carry water with buckets, or we have to have tankers to deliver water. We committed on that aspect, and we're working on it. Second is electricity. High is purely our communities, as I'm speaking to you, they've not had electricity for the last 3 to 4 years, not out of their own making, purely because of vandalism of infrastructure, which is the third issue, where majority of our infrastructure is vandalized. Basically, you go to community halls, you find that things are missing or people have destroyed community installations and many of our facilities. And thirdly, fourthly, it's the issues that are in front of you, your traffic lights that are not functional. 6 is your potholes. Then we've got CBDs that are not working very well. Then the issue of crime. And the hallmark of everything, unfortunately, is unemployment that has ravaged our communities. As I've said, we've also added the issue of sinkholes as a matter that needs our immediate attention. You go to our hospitals, either the queues or facilities are not ready to accommodate our people, and we don't have sufficient schools. So if you combine all those things, we call them G13, and these are the things that we honestly feel in the next year or so, there must be a huge turnaround on them so that we can allow our people. But we're excited that the investment community believes in us. We held an investment conference, and 320 billion wasn't pledged. But you can't have investors coming here if there's no water and there's no electricity, or our roads are in a bad state that they're in. So we just have to focus on those issues. Hence, we call them G13 Arabic.
All right. And you said that this G13 priorities are ones that you're looking to fix by when, if you don't mind me asking, just to confirm?
We've given ourselves a year, which is a tough call. Okay. But we have to. We have to, because if you say 2 years, who must drive in a road that is not proper for 2 years? Yeah. Who must live in a house without electricity for 2 years? So we're working on a 12-month cycle, and now that we are restarting the budget nationally, we will also reprioritize some of these issues and incorporate them in our budget.
All right. So within a year then, let's focus in a little bit on the unemployment one. I mean, you had the jobs program called NAS Hispani. Yeah. You're looking to get all municipalities that are controlled by the ANC to then implement this jobs program. How exactly is it going to work? And how many jobs are you hoping to then add off the basis of that?
It's very simple, Arabi. We don't have, you go to every township, there's no tar road. So what we mean is that you have to train people on how to put tar road. And then invest in tar road, which implements you have to get the infrastructure and the equipment, and municipalities then can be in a position to ensure that each street have a tar road. We have communities that are extremely dirty. We agree now that we're going to invest in recruiting people that can clean our townships. We also agreed that demolition is going to be the new feature in terms of developing our CBDs. There are buildings that must collapse because they are old. And therefore, you need to train and absorb people that can assist us in clearing the areas after building have been demolished. So there are many things in local government. That is why we feel that we now have to take NAS's plan into local government and ensure that as many people as possible are accommodated. And we're excited this week, almost 33,000 people, young people in our province, will be placed in our schools as part of teacher assistance. So it's a massive, massive volume, Arabi, that will assist us. I can't give exact figure, but it's a massive volume that hopefully will absorb young people.
Premier, I've only got 30 seconds, unfortunately, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the rental issue, of course, across the province that you're still facing for a lot of your buildings. How soon can you ultimately have that sorted? Because it's an investigation into why it's happening as it is happening, and the amount that is still being spent, of course, being absolutely massive.
No, it's just to check whether the amount is market-related, because the reality is that we've got buildings that we couldn't occupy on the decision that we've taken as government. Previously, head office of government was in Pretoria during apartheid. So when we migrated it to Johannesburg, there were buildings in Pretoria that can be utilized, and they still can be utilized because head office is in Johannesburg. We wanted to go on a private-public partnership to determine whether we can repurpose those buildings so that they can either be student accommodation or social housing. So I've just appointed a team now just to go and investigate whether the 34 million that we're paying is value for money, and what is the long-term solution that can assist us to ensure that we save